I've watched my favorite team, the Dodgers, blow a few big leads this season. None of that compares to the lead they blew 34 years ago today. But even though it was a disaster for my favorite team, I have fond family memories of it. Let's talk about it now on Baseball Boulevard. In the summer of 1990, I was 13 years old. My grandparents owned a used appliance store in downtown Lake Elsinore, California called John's Service Center, and they also ran a 24-hour telephone answering service out of the store called, you guessed it, John's Answering Service. They had a Murphy bed in the front office, and while they owned a house a couple miles away, for all intents and purposes, they lived at the store. They had a lot of grandkids living in town, and we all used to love to go spend the night at Grandpa's store. We would eat their candy bars and drink their sodas. They also ran the local Greyhound bus stop out of the store, so they had junk to sell to travelers, and explore the dark caverns of their huge, crowded store. It wasn't just used appliances. Grandpa had a little bit of everything, although I don't remember ever actually seeing him sell anything other than junk food and Greyhound tickets. We would race the used wheelchairs that Grandpa had for theoretical sale. We'd play with the helium tanks that had been on the showroom floor my entire life, and we would generally just have a blast hanging out with each other and our grandparents. There were parts of the store that were dark and scary and possibly to our young minds haunted, but other than that, and the fact that they once employed an active serial killer for 3 years during his killing spree. Yeah, besides the haunted store and the serial killer, it was a pretty idyllic childhood. By the way, Grandpa's store is now Stadium Pizza on Main Street in Lake Elsinore. If you're ever in the area to catch a minor league baseball game, do some water skiing, or go skydiving, be sure to stop by for some great pizza. I've been there several times and it's a lot less haunted now that it's a pizza place. At Grandpa's store, we would also occasionally watch baseball. My grandparents weren't huge baseball fans, but they were proud Southern Californians, and they knew we liked baseball, so the television in the front office/bedroom was often tuned to Channel 11 KTTV to watch the Los Angeles Dodgers play. While I remember watching games at Grandpa's store quite often, there are only two specific games that I remember in detail, and both happened to be against the Phillies. One of them happened on July 7, 1993, when the Phillies beat the Dodgers 7-6 in 20 innings, and Kevin Stalker, in his Major League debut, went 0 for 6 with 2 walks and a sacrifice bunt while playing all 20 innings at shortstop. The other game happened on Tuesday, August 21st, 1990, 34 years ago today, with the Dodgers taking on the Phillies at Dodger Stadium. This game wasn't actually on KTTV because back then teams rarely televised their home games. But it was on ESPN's Tuesday Night Baseball with Chris Berman and Tommy Hutton on the mic instead of Vince Scully, Don Drysdale, and Ross Porter. One of the coolest things about Grandpa's store was that King Video Cable, the local cable company, was one of their answering service clients. So they got all the cable channels for free so they could properly tell customers, well, it's working fine for me, when they called in to complain. I remember watching the game off and on throughout the evening, and it was a close game until the bottom of the 5th inning, when the Dodgers scored 8 runs to turn a 3-1 game into an 11-1 laugher, as Berman described it. According to Baseball Reference, when Mike Sharperson's grounder scored Huey Brooks from third base to make it 7-1 with no outs in the 5th, the Phillies' win probability hit 0%. That probability stayed at 0% for a long time, not even budging in the top of the 8th when Von Hayes hit a 2-run double to score Dave Hollins and Lenny Dykstra. By that point, Dodgers manager Tommy Lasorda had long since pulled all his starters except Sharperson, including replacing starting shortstop Alfredo Griffin with rookie Jose Offerman playing in the 3rd game of his career. That will become important shortly. The Phillies came into the top of the 9th down 11-3, and the Dodgers brought in 29-year-old rookie Dave Walsh to close things out. Then the wheels came off. Walsh walked light-hitting second baseman Rod Booker to start the inning, but he induced a potential double-play grounder from slow-footed first baseman Carmelo Martinez. Unfortunately for Walsh, Offerman booted the grounder for an error, so instead of 2 outs and nobody on base, the Phillies had runners on first and third with no outs. It was the second error of Offerman's young career, but he would make 137 more as the Dodgers shortstop over the next 5 seasons. Consecutive singles by Dickie Thon and Hollins scored Booker and Martinez, and Sil Campusano hit a short flyout to right fielder Chris Gwynn for the first out. A walk to Tom Nieto loaded the bases, and Offerman's second chance at a double play, a grounder by Hayes, turned into his second error of the night. With that, Walsh's night was done. Reliever Tim Cruz came in to shut things down, but instead, he threw gas on the fire. A 2-run double by Dale Murphy made it 11-8, and John Kruk came to the plate with runners on second and third and 1 out. According to Jason Stark, Kruk's thought process was that since they were already going to get back to the hotel too late to order room service, the game started at 7:35 p.m. local time, so by this point it was getting close to 11 o'clock, the Phillies might as well just win the game. So, shortly after Berman declared that John I am not a Kruk doesn't have the long ball power, Kruk deposited a Cruz fastball back into the right field bleachers, and the game was suddenly tied. After a single by Booker, Cruz's night was done. Jay Howell came in and allowed a go-ahead double to Martinez before finally getting Thon on a flyout and Campusano on a groundout for what should have been the 6th and 7th outs of the inning. The Phillies led 12-11, and their win probability, which had been at 0% to start the inning, now sat at 82%. Here's an interesting interlude. The box score for this game shows a relatively rare scoring quirk, one of my favorite scoring quirks, where the sum of each pitcher's earned runs does not equal the team's total earned runs. As you can see, the Dodgers pitchers allowed a total of 7 earned runs, but the team total shows only 4 earned runs. This is because of Rule 9.16i of the official rules, which states, when pitchers are changed during an inning, the relief pitcher shall not have the benefit of previous chances for outs not accepted in determining earned runs. An explanatory note adds, it is the intent of the Rule 9.16i to charge a relief pitcher with earned runs for which such relief pitcher is solely responsible. In some instances, runs charged as earned against the relief pitcher can be charged as unearned against the team. So by the time Cruz came in, the game would have been over if not for Offerman's 2 errors. From that point on, any runs scored are unearned runs as far as the team is concerned because the at-bats never should have even happened. But from an individual standpoint, Cruz came in and allowed a double, a home run, and a single to the only batters he faced, and all 3 batters scored. Because of Rule 9.16i, those runs are earned for him individually, but unearned for the team. In the bottom of the 9th, the Dodgers had their 2-3-4 hitters coming up, so reliever Don Carmen would have to get the heart of the order out to finish things off. Unfortunately for the Dodgers, as I mentioned, Lasorda had pulled all the starters when the game was a rout, so instead of power-hitting gauntlet of Kirk Gibson, Cal Daniels, and Eddie Murray, Carmen got to face Jose Gonzalez, Stan Javier, and Mickey Hatcher. Javier managed a single, but it was sandwiched between pop-ups from Gonzalez and Hatcher. Gwynn hit a grounder to Thon at shortstop, who flipped it to Booker for the out at second, and the game was over. The Phillies were down by 10 runs in the 8th inning and 8 runs in the 9th inning, and they came back and won. This game remains tied for the record for largest 9th inning deficit overcome in a victory, and it remains etched in my mind as I watched it play out in the office at Grandpa's store. It was heartbreaking for a 13-year-old Dodger fan to watch, but because it was ultimately meaningless, I can watch the highlight video and just enjoy its absurdity. It gives me an excuse to think about my grandparents, and family is the main reason I love baseball, so it's pretty great. Be sure to like this video, follow Baseball Velour, and tell your friends and family about the channel. Talk to you soon.